Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to get the video so it's optimized to work with FB360. And in particular, what we want to be able to do is also figure out the optimization for uploading it to YouTube. So the first thing I want to look at here is when we were working with this video system over here, it says read the documentation. H.264 is not recommended. Read the documentation. So let's take a look. So what it's telling us right here is that converting videos to DNx HD with IFFmpeg. Well, actually, basically what it wants us to do is we have to use DNx HD. I thought it was DNx LR, but whatever. Let's use DNx HD. So, like, basically, this is also for YouTube. YouTube, and I haven't looked at the Facebook settings yet here too, but you need to be able to understand like what the settings are that they're expecting. And also part of it is we don't want to be transcoding 1,000 times over. So this kind of goes at the heart of what I was talking about earlier in the semester when I was doing the ripping off the DVD or Blu-ray stuff. And I wanted to keep if I want to replace the audio, a lot of times you want to replace the audio in the video file without changing the video. Because every time you do a transcoding or you do a re-encoding of something, especially on these video codecs, they're going to be lossy. So it'd be like the equivalent of taking, the equivalent of doing something like encoding your tracks down to MP3, then opening them up, mastering them, then re-encoding them back into MP3, change something. Basically, if you basically did nothing but re-encode an MP3 over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to get degradation of quality. And so the same thing happens with video. All video, well, almost all video that we work with in real life works on a heavily compressed format in the same vein as like MP3 or any of these lossy kind of codecs, because the data throughput, uncompressed video is just massive. So what you have to do is you have to squish it down and explode it back up. But the problem is what we don't want to do is be re-encoding this all the time. So again, going back to what we were talking about, if we have an MP4 container, we can have different codecs inside of that. And for the most part, what we tend to use for most video is going to be H.264. It's kind of like the modern standard. DNx HD is what we call H.265. It's the newer version of this thing, and I'm pretty sure that's the case. But I've seen it used interchangeably, but I'm not entirely sure of like the hardcore details. I'm just going to go off of what this is telling me right here. So what it wants me to do. Oh, there it is. Avid format is DNx HD, which is profile DNx HD. DNxHR_LB. So what we want to do is we need to convert this into a format that works. And you can buy they make converters for it, but we've already done this with FFmpeg. They've got this whole like complicated thing down here, doing all this junk down here, but we're just going to go with this one right here, good old FFmpeg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this video file that we've got that I'm using right here. I'm going to get rid of it because I practiced before. I'm going to go back over to this one right here, and let's go to trains. And I want to re-encode this one right here to DNx HD using these settings here. So there's my FFmpeg. So if you forgot, let's go back to terminal. I'm going to go CD desktop. Oops. Yeah. So now I'm looking at the desktop right now. You can see I've got all this stuff on the desktop, which correlates to what I see over here. But the big one for me right now is I see this one right here. So that's our FFmpeg. So there's things you can do to install it so you can just run FFmpeg. But for me, I'm going to have to go like, I'm going to go to the FFmpeg folder. It's like in my downloads folder. It's on my desktop right now. But I'm going to go, once you're in the directory, you say /FFmpeg to say I want to run this thing. -I for the input file, and I'm going to grab the mix. I'm going to grab this train one right here, and so it says FFmpeg -I input file. So that I just put the input file, and then I'm going to copy all of this. I'm going to copy that, paste it over into terminal. Ah, crap. Oh, good. So I've got all that stuff that it told me what it wanted to do. And then I'm going to put this I'll just put it on desktop again. So I'm going to go to this trains folder. So I'm going to copy the trains folder in there. So that's the folder that I'm going to use. And I'm going to call it /train1.mp4. See if that works. Cool. Oh, what did I screw up? What do I need? Oh, .mov. My bad. So if we look down here, so apparently DNxHD cannot work in the .mp4 container. So I have to make this as a .mov. So let's go back up, try this again. I'm gonna go .mov. Let's give it a second. I'll probably edit this out. Was it like 2 or 3 minutes? I'm just gonna pause here. So that took forever because I'm trying to render like 2 things at once. I've got like the videos rendering in the background and then this one going. So it took a long time, but looks like it worked. So basically kicked this thing out right here. We've got our train 1. And what's interesting is just like looking at this. So this is the train1.mov that it created, that this is the original. So it actually doubled, almost tripled in size. This thing got big. So I wanted to see what it will actually open with. So, I mean, what do we have? We have the GoPro VR. Where'd it go? So it does, let's see if it'll work with VLC. Let's see if this works. I don't know. Like DNxHD, I don't know what can run with this thing. Let's see if this works. Nope, unsupported codec or audio or video. So GoPro does not like DNxHD. So actually, I wonder if it'll show us. Get info. Yeah, so the codecs are AVDH. So it's not showing us much what's going on in there. So it doesn't, I don't know if it has any audio with it or not, or if that includes the codec includes the audio inside of that. I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty unfamiliar with DNxHD. So let's close that. Let's see what else what can we open with it with the Ricoh Theta. Looks like it's opening. Taking a long time though. I think I'm gonna skip it, but I'm betting it's gonna work. I don't feel like waiting too long. Too long for what we're trying to do right now. So let's just consider it good. So I'm gonna move the FFmpeg out of the way. Let's see if the video player works here. So let's load a different video in here. Where did it go? Where's that? There it is. Might take a minute for it to open up. Cool. So still a little fuzzy looking, but let's see if it's synced. Yeah, so the synchronization works. Another little explosion. But the synchronization between the two of these works. And so this is the way that it prefers that you work if you're doing this. And again, the reason being is because this is going to use a lot of bandwidth. And so if you're trying to run, right now we're using a lame little session right here, but if you have a lot of content, effects, so on and so forth, you're asking your CPU to do the decoding of the video and streaming as well as all your CPU stuff that you're gonna be doing in your DAW. So that can be really tasking. So it's usually a good idea to do it this way. I would say usually, like I've done a whole bunch of these, but I know that that's what it prefers, and it's not. Let's see, where's that video player? Not barking at us anymore. So it does work. So, and you could also use this as standalone if you wanted to watch this. So now you've converted it, and I'm hoping at this point, basically you've converted it now to DNxHD, and that you don't need to convert it again after this, because pretty much I'm sure that that's how YouTube will upload and work with DNxHD natively, and that's what we're looking for. So in the kind of the mastering vibe, we're trying to transcode as few times as possible, because every time you transcode, there's potential for errors. So that's kind of the underlying idea here. Okay, so at this point we've got our codec done, and we've got our session kind of rocking and rolling here. And so again, you could just go through, do your sound design. If you want to do a music track, you could throw a music track on top of there. We're going to talk a little bit more about doing head tracked versus head locked in a different video. But I think I'll call it there with this one, just because I wanted to go through it, and just because if you're following along, that's going to take you a little while. It just, if you haven't done FFmpeg for a while, you have to look closely at it. So just follow the instructions in the FB360 documentation. All right, cool.